In the gentle, undisturbed light of the Shire, where every rolling hill and babbling brook sung the song of an innocent life, there lay an unspoken secret. Beneath the laughter at the party tree and behind the warm glow of hobbit holes, there existed a faint murmur, a whisper carried on the autumn wind. It was not the wind's chill nor the rustling of leaves, it was something else, an echo from a destiny too weighty for the simple souls of the Shire to fathom. Frodo, our reluctant hero, first felt that tremor of disquiet as he sat by the window in Bag End. In those quiet moments, the familiar faces of his kin and the peaceful cadence of everyday life could not fully drown the insidious susurration, a promise of absolute power, seductive and terrible. It beckoned him in dreams and daylight alike, promising dominion over all who dwelled in shadow. Even as he clutched the small, unadorned ring passed on by Bilbo, he sensed the subtle, malign influence creeping into his thoughts. The Shire's unburdened joy and its rustic simplicity were under threat. From within, from a power so absolute, it whispered the lure of untold might. When the time came to leave the comfort of his home, Frodo stepped onto the path that led away from the familiar, burdened by a secret too heavy to name. Every step he took was accompanied by the persistent, almost hypnotic murmur of that ring. The road out of the Shire, meandering, sunlit, and yet laced with hidden dangers, became the stage upon which the battle for his very soul would be waged. The whispers, like a phantom choir, rose and fell with each heartbeat. They promised strength, invincibility, and a destiny that soared above the petty concerns of mortal life. And yet, within each seductive promise lay a dark price, the surrender of one's very self to the corrupting allure of power. As the company gathered, hobbits, men, elves, and dwarves alike, a quiet tension spread through the campfires and shared meals. Among these brave souls, Frodo's inner turmoil was a silent storm. In the starlight, as the others slumbered or murmured tales of old, the ring's voice would rise within him. It spoke not in thunderous declarations, but in the soft, persistent cadence of temptation. "Embrace me," it would whisper, "and rule over all that you see. Let your heart no longer be burdened by fear or doubt." At times the voice was a mere susurration, a subtle suggestion, while at others it came as a roaring tide, threatening to wash away the fragile barrier of his will. On one moonlit night near the banks of a silver stream, Frodo wandered alone. The cool water glinted with starlight, and the night was deep with ancient secrets. As he knelt to drink, a vision unfurled before him. Not a scene of pastoral bliss, but of a grand, terrible throne forged of darkness, encircled by legions of shadow. In that vision, he saw himself crowned as a ruler, yet the crown was a prison, the glory a mask for eternal torment. The ring's voice, once again, murmured in his ear, "Such power is yours for the taking." The shock of the vision left him trembling. Was this the destiny that awaited him, or was it the cunning deception of an evil that knew no bounds? That night, beneath the silent gaze of 100 stars, Frodo's heart waged war against itself. The whispers of absolute power seduced him with visions of grandeur and control, while the memory of the Shire's humble peace and the gentle kindness of friends pulled him back from the precipice. In the days that followed, the Fellowship's journey took them through deep, ancient forests and over misty mountain passes where the air itself seemed charged with the residue of old magic. Every creak of a branch, every distant howl of a creature unknown, heightened the tension in Frodo's mind. The ring's murmurs grew bolder as they neared lands where the veil between the past and the present was thin. There were moments, amidst the eerie silence of twilight, when Frodo almost believed He could hear the ring laughing at his struggle, a low, mirthless sound that spoke of ancient malice. It was during one such twilight, as the camp gathered beneath a canopy of trembling oaks, that Frodo finally spoke aloud the name of his inner torment. "I feel it," he confessed to Sam, his voice a broken whisper. "I feel the call, the promise of power that would erase all fear, all pain." Sam, ever steadfast, laid a gentle hand on his friend's shoulder. "But at what cost, Mr. Frodo?" he replied, his eyes filled with both concern and unwavering loyalty. "I have seen what this power can do. It eats away at you piece by piece until nothing remains but a hollow shell." Gazing into the fire's dancing light, Frodo saw, if only for a moment, a future in which he was lost, his eyes glazed over with a hunger that no mortal joy could satisfy. Yet even as that dark possibility pressed in, he clung to the memory of the Shire, of laughter shared under the sun, and the simple pleasures of a life unburdened by destiny. In the company of his friends, each with their own burdens and scars, Frodo began to understand that the battle against the ring was not fought solely on lonely roads or in solitary moments of despair. Gandalf, the wise and enigmatic guide, became a beacon amid the encroaching gloom. In one of their long, winding conversations by a quiet stream, Gandalf spoke of the nature of power itself. "Absolute power," he murmured, "is a siren song to the heart. It promises order and dominion, yet it corrupts the soul from within. True strength lies not in command over others, but in the humility to serve, and in the courage to resist what tempts us beyond reason." Gandalf's words, spoken in a tone both gentle and resolute, offered Frodo a fragile shield against the seductive whispers. Each word was like a drop of pure water against the scorching heat of temptation, cooling his fevered mind, if only for a time. And as he listened, Frodo began to see that fighting the whisper of absolute power was not an act of defiance in a single moment. It was a lifelong struggle, a series of choices made every day in small, seemingly inconsequential moments. As the journey pressed on, the toll of constant temptation began to manifest not only in Frodo's thoughts but in his very body. The road grew harsher, the lands more unyielding. At the edge of a great shadowed valley, the ring's voice became a tempest, thundering in his mind as if to shatter his resolve. In that bleak, windswept moment, Frodo stood upon a ridge and cried out into the vast emptiness. "I will not be its slave!" His voice, raw with defiance and despair alike, echoed off the distant cliffs. In that cathartic shout, he felt for the first time the true cost of surrendering to the lure, a life devoid of choice, where every thought was but a slave to an insatiable hunger for power. That day, the battle was not waged with sword or spell, but with a trembling, resolute heart. In his silence afterward, Frodo realized that the true enemy was not an external force to be vanquished with might, but the insidious seduction that whispered in the quiet hours of the night. His choice was not simply to carry the ring, but to carry it with a steadfast spirit, tempered by love, friendship, and a deep, unyielding resolve to remain true to who he was. In the aftermath of that fierce internal clash, it was the simple presence of his companions that helped rebuild the broken parts of his will. Sam, with his unwavering loyalty and gentle humor, became the constant reminder that the value of one's soul was measured not by power, but by the kindness one extended to others. "It's not about what the ring can give you," Sam said quietly one evening as they sat beneath a spreading elm. "It's about what you give back to the world and how you care for those around you." In those words lay an antidote to the poison of absolute power, Each small kindness, each act of courage in the face of overwhelming darkness served as a tiny victory over the seductive call of domination. The whispers, though never completely silenced, began to lose their urgency as Frodo learned to anchor himself in the love and camaraderie that bound him to his friends and indeed to all that was good in the world. With every passing day, as the shadows lengthened along the road ahead, Frodo found that the real battle was not one of might, but of spirit. He came to understand that absolute power, if allowed to corrupt, could turn the noblest heart into a tyrant. Yet by embracing humility, by cherishing the quiet moments of genuine connection with those around him, he reclaimed a piece of himself each day. The journey was fraught with danger, and the ring's whisper continued to haunt him at every step. Yet in the gentle cadence of laughter shared with friends, and in the silent, steadfast support of the wise, he discovered a power greater than any that the ring could promise. In his darkest moments, when the lure of absolute power seemed all-consuming, Frodo would close his eyes and recall the simple joys of the Shire, the rustle of the wind through the golden fields, the warm, inviting glow of a hobbit's hearth, and the quiet pride of a life lived in truth and simplicity. It was in these memories that he found the strength to fight back against the seductive whispers that sought to enslave him. He resolved that no matter the price, he would never allow that darkness to claim him completely. Standing at the crossroads of destiny, with the weight of a world's future upon his shoulders, Frodo made a silent vow. In the light of a new dawn, as the sky blushed with the promise of hope, he declared to himself, to the silent witnesses of nature, that he would fight the whispers of absolute power with every fiber of his being. He would wield not a sword, but his own inner light, not brute force, but compassion, humility, and unwavering resolve. Every day henceforth would be a testament to the belief that true power was born of sacrifice, of the willingness to let go of pride and to embrace the strength that lay in vulnerability. That vow, spoken softly to the awakening earth, marked a turning point in his arduous journey. It was a declaration that while the ring might always call to him in quiet, relentless tones, he would never answer blindly. Instead, he would listen with a discerning heart, rejecting the venom of absolute dominion in favor of a life enriched by genuine connection and the courage to stand against an insidious fate. As the company pressed onward into lands where ancient evils stirred and the very air seemed to whisper of forgotten legends, Frodo carried with him the hard-won lesson that the greatest battle is fought within. Every step along that uncertain road was a choice to defy the seductive allure of power, to uphold the simple truths that had nurtured his soul since childhood. And though the journey ahead promised more trials, more moments when the whisper might return with renewed intensity, he knew that as long as he held fast to his vow and relied on the strength of love and friendship, he would be able to face whatever darkness lay in wait. In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, amidst the clamor of a world on the brink of despair, Frodo's struggle became a beacon, a reminder that even in the face of absolute temptation, the human spirit could choose to stand, to fight, and ultimately to prevail. The whispers of power might never be fully silenced, but their grip could be loosened by the steady, resolute cadence of a heart committed to goodness over dominion. And so, as the first rays of a hopeful dawn broke over the horizon, Frodo pressed onward, each step a defiant answer to the darkness, a pledge that he, and those who journeyed with him, would forever resist the call of absolute power.